The super speedy Cider Squeezy 6000, say that 5 times fast, is baffling to say the least. Like every episode of the show is capped off with a moral, right? And this time around, it seems as though the moral is supposed to be quality over quantity. But as you're about to see, that doesn't hold up at all given the plot, a few odd details, and how the problem is ultimately resolved by the end. Now I know it's kind of stupid to complain about a TV episode that came out 10 years ago, but I wasn't a reviewer back then, so I have to do it now.
Now I'm certain that a bunch of you are skeptical right now, so allow me to clarify that I'm reviewing this episode simply because I have a lot to say about it, and no one is forcing me to do this.
Let's just get into it. The episode begins with Fluttershy being woken up by Rainbow Dash in a hurry. What's the rush? Well, it's cider season, the one time a year when the local apple farm produces its patented apple cider for everyone to buy. Or well, not quite everyone, because apparently they always run out before everyone can get a swig, which is why Rainbow was so serious about getting up at the crack of dawn just to get in line.
Don't you remember what happened last year? Or the year before that? Or pretty much any cider season ever? Pinkie Pie. She always ends up ahead of us in line, and then they always run out of cider!
Alright, so it's made very clear that the Apple family running out of cider is a reoccurring problem, and one that likely even predates these two characters becoming friends. Well, quote-unquote friends. What happens in this episode where Ellie had to go on, you probably wouldn't believe that these two even like each other. That is some genuine horror right there when Rainbow finds out there's already a line even so early in the morning, with Pinkie at the front no less. Anyway, the tents disappear into the ether and cider season officially begins, with Pinkie being the first one to purchase— hey, what the hell? Pinkie's carrying at least 9 steins of this stuff. Are you kidding me with that? They just established that the apples run out of cider every year, and yet they're letting Pinkie have seconds, thirds, and so on without needing to get back in line. No wonder they keep running out so fast. The scalpers get to the cider first, and the normal customers get screwed over. Look at how much Pinkie pays for all that cider. There's like over 100 bits in there. For reference, one serving costs 2 bits, as seen here. So possibility 1, Pinkie is bribing the apples so they sell her more than one serving without batting an eye because greed. Or possibility 2, Pinkie actually bought over 50 steins and then drank them all as she walked by the entire line just to be as smug as possible. Oh yeah, and since Pinkie doesn't have like a hangover, I think it's safe to say that the cider is not alcoholic. It's just really good, I guess. Either way, Rainbow and the other townspeople have every right to be pissed off.
Hold on, Everpony. We've done our best to improve supply this year.
You always say that!
And it's always true. But Apple Family cider is made with love and integrity, and only the highest quality apples in Equestria. Sorry, but that recipe takes time.
You know, somehow I don't believe you. Well, after Pinkie jeers Rainbow for taking the apple's entire stock, the titular super speedy Cider Squeezy 6000 appears with impeccable timing. And from the Great Machine, off steps the Flim Flam brothers, making their very first appearance with a song. And it's one of the best songs in the series. Not only is it effective at establishing Flim and Flam, their machine, as well as the main conflict, but the joke-on instrumentation and rapid fire of rhymes from the two brothers really sell you on this pitch of theirs. The whole thing is a very clear homage to the classic 1962 film Marge vs. the Monorail, about a con artist who swings into town one day to try and trick the local population into buying something that they probably don't need. Plus, it also likely inspired Flim and Flam's barbershop quartet-esque aesthetic. And let's be real, what better way is there to hype up a crowd than with a super catchy musical number?
So take this opportunity in this very community. He's Flim, he's Flam, we're the world famous Flim Flam brothers. Traveling sales ponies not far away.
The two then go on to explain how their machine works. What they do is, using magic, the machine harvests the apples, borrowing the Apple family's trees for the demonstration, where they are then turned into cider automatically. And furthermore, it has a quality control system to prevent below par apples from making it into the batch, thus resulting in cider that's produced much faster, while still being just as good as the all-natural stuff that Applejack was preaching about earlier. Speaking of whom, after the song ends, the Flim Flam brothers make a deal with the Apple family, that being that they'd use their machine to help them make their cider faster in exchange for 75% of the profits. And I shit you not, the apples don't even try to negotiate that down to something more reasonable. They just flatly refuse the deal. What kind of business is this? Shouldn't Granny have at least some experience with this sort of thing? Actually, Granny is pretty dang suspicious throughout this whole episode. Notice how she's the only one who ever tried Flim and Flam cider, likes it, and then looks really worried. What is that all about? Oh no, please don't tell me the apples are running an artificial scarcity scheme to drive up demand for their product, with Granny being the mastermind of it all. Saying that producing the cider takes a while is a convenient excuse, but it's never actually explained why the Apple family doesn't just hire extra help for this one part of the year to increase efficiency. Them running out of cider is a recurring problem, but it seems as though they don't really care about solving it, almost as if they're doing it on purpose. And since they're the only apple farm in town, who's gonna stop them? The customers are at their mercy. In another universe, Flim and Flam would be the heroes for giving the people what they want as they stand up against the evil Apple Corporation. Their stranglehold over the average consumer being so great that they simply cannot live without their Apple products. The scalpers, they see money in the artificial scarcity and buy in bulk so they can sell it online at a higher markup to desperate customers. And when scrutinized for their actions, the Apple higher-ups and CEOs lie to the public by playing up how great their product is while downplaying any flaws in their business model. Meanwhile, Flim & Flam bravely challenge the established norms in New York City, known to many as the Big Apple, in order to tear down the evil monopoly once and for all. So after refusing the deal, Flim & Flam decided they can't work together with the apples, then they'll just run them out of business instead. Just like how the Apple family runs out of cider every day, which surprise surprise happens again. And so the brothers return with a load of cider already prepped, which Applejack does not approve of.
You can't sell that cider. That's made from Apple family apples. Is this some kind of cruel joke?
Call it karma. Also, as you just heard, the cider that Flim & Flam tried to give out was made from apples off the farm, since they don't actually have their own supply, which means they technically stole that produce in order to make that cider, so the apples can legally sue and seize all their assets, but they're so stupid they didn't even think of that. So after dodging a legal bullet, the Flim Flam brothers say if they can't use the apples here, then they can just go to another apple farm to make their cider from and then come back. But to do that would be grossly inefficient, because the nearest farm has got to be decently far away if the apples don't have any other competition, not to mention run by other people that the brothers would need to talk into helping them. And even if they are able to make the cider from another farm, surely the machine has a limited carrying capacity, and so they still won't be able to serve everyone if they can't make this cider as they sell it. Plus, even if they did manage to partner with another farm, then surely they would just set up shop there, wouldn't they? What, are they gonna go through all that effort to commute there and back just out of spite? And even if they do accomplish all that and come back, then what? They'll sell cider after the Apple family runs out, made from apples that aren't theirs, so the apples wouldn't even be losing money in that scenario. You dumbasses, they are not a threat to you. They're clearly bluffing, but like I said, the apples aren't exactly the sharpest tools in the shed, if you know what I mean. At this rate, the apples are just one sly remark away from doing something rash.
What's the matter, Granny Smith? Chicken?
So Granny does something rash and hastily agrees to a bet with the Flim Flam brothers. Whoever can produce the most cider in 1 hour gets control of the farm. Not the machine and the farm, just the farm. Flim and Flam get to keep their machine if they lose, which means the apples have nothing to gain from this. You know what, at this point, you people deserve to lose your dumb farm. How the H you've stayed in business this long is a mystery to me. So anyway, it's the next day and the competition is about to start. Oh god, they got the mayor officiating this and everything. Once the timer starts, the apples immediately get to work, trying as hard as they can. Meanwhile, the Flim Flam brothers hardly try at all. Yet despite that, they're still able to make 6 barrels of cider for every 1 that the apples produce. Okay, wait a second, so the machine improves productivity by 6 times? You idiots! If you had taken the 75-25 split, you still would have had a 50% increase in profits. Actually, scratch that, 75% if you and the machine work simultaneously. And I know you're probably thinking, but what if they run out of apples? Then the season's over. Kaput. You saw it, there were tons of trees that they weren't able to tap because they couldn't produce cider fast enough, even at the spot where the cider is sold. They make a new batch of cider each day of the season, so it's not like they have a shortage of apples to deal with, and if we assume those apples go to waste if they're not picked, then the apples actually lose money by not working with Flim and Flam. Well, anyway, the contest continues, and the apples are somehow able to double their speed, making it 1 barrel for Flim and Flam's 3, which is still not enough. So, Applejack's friends decide to meddle with the competition and help the apple side, and since Flim and Flam were overconfident, they let it slide. And somehow, even though the apple's manpower, or horsepower, merely doubled, they're somehow outpacing Flim and Flam now, going from a rate of 3-1 to a rate of 3-5. Wait, so are you telling me that Applejack's friends are better making cider than her family, who has done this for years? Pathetic! And I neglected mentioning this earlier, but it's really dumb how the Apple's game plan for cider season is just pre-make all the cider and then sell it all at once. Here's a bright idea. Why don't you make the cider while it's being sold? Why not have you 4 produce the cider and then get someone else to man the counter and sell it? There is no reason for all 4 of you to be at the counter. It's pointless. Like, what? Big Mac moves the barrels, Apple Bloom operates the tap, Granny Smith counts the money, and Applejack just sort of stands there and patronizes the crowd? All of that could be handled by a single person or 2. Hell, Rimble would probably do it for free if you pay her in refills. Anyway, after the apples surpass them in numbers, the Flim Flam brothers finally start taking them seriously and decide to double the machine's power just to get back in the lead. And doing so causes their suction thing to suck up entire trees at once, thus causing extreme property damage and ruining every single apple that goes through quality control. So, okay, that was extreme, but it didn't work. That is until Flan decides to turn off quality control so they can technically produce more cider, while still irreversibly destroying the apple farm. But crazier still, the other side seems more pissed off about Flim and Flam turning off quality control than the whole tree thing. There are probably animals in there, you know? Applejack, really? You have nothing to say about that?
1 bad apple spoils that bunch! Applejack, help me!
There's no point in winning if we cheat.
Okay, I guess you're cool with this then. Also, it's not cheating. The cider's quality is irrelevant to the competition's rules. Now, if any of you out there thought that this whole setup seemed a little familiar, that's because this episode is actually an homage to John Henry versus the Steam Drill. Man versus machine, a tall tale as old as time, where John Henry faces off against the Steam Drill to see who can dig through the mountain faster, which was made harder when the Grim Reaper used underworld magic to make the drill more powerful. But John Henry was determined, yo, so he got faster too and worked so hard that he broke the laws of physics and entered the 8th dimension where he was swallowed by a giant alien. That's true! That happened in real life! Historians are still baffled. Anyway, the same thing happens here. The machine gets a boost to its productivity, the apples resolve to just work harder and take victory the honest way, and the Flim Flam brothers win. Because machine beats man every time. Hold on a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so after counting up the barrels that the apple side made, it can be no more than 36. At max efficiency, with help, in 1 hour, they made 36 barrels. And once the time's up, it's clear that everyone is pretty much tapped out and can't work anymore, though they don't die like John Henry did. So going back to those stats, which state that the apple's productivity increased by a factor of 10, then that means the apples normally produce around 3.5 barrels per hour. If we simplify things a bit. After all, the rate at which they produce those 36 barrels is constantly fluctuating, but let's give the apples a generous estimate. On the first day of cider season, we see, at most, 25 barrels at one time. And assuming they make the same amount of barrels each day, then each day of cider season equates to a little less than 7 hours of work. And since Flim Flam's machine can produce cider 6 times faster, then they can make the same amount of cider in a little over 1 hour and 10 minutes, which, may I stress, is effortless. You saw how nonchalant they were. The apple side had to push themselves to the absolute limit and get extra help just to surpass them. It cannot be worth it to waste all that energy. All this whole ordeal proves is that the farm is criminally understaffed. Like, are you daft? 4 people does not a workforce make. How stuck in your ways or just straight stupid do you have to be to expect to meet the demand of an entire town all by yourselves? The line stretches over the horizon, and it's been like that for years. You'd think the episode would end with the apples solving this problem, but they don't. This is all just a colossal waste of time. Whatever, now that Flim and Flam on the farm, they try to sell some of the cider they produce, specifically the trash cider that has bits of tree and dead animals mixed into it. Because I guess they were too lazy to grab some of the good cider from the bottom of the pile. And then when they have the crap cider spat back in their faces, they just sort of leave and never come back. What, did they forget they had some good cider left? I know it may just seem like a plot hole, but I feel like there's something more to this. Here's the thing, it's incredibly strange that the Flim Flam brothers are here at all, since their whole shtick is that they are con artist characters and lean into that in every future appearance. In Leap of Faith, the two of them sell a simple fruit drink and advertise it as a miracle cure-all. And in Friendship University, they start a bunk college program with plagiarized lessons. So it's very odd that in the brothers' first appearance, the product they're selling is not a con. Granny's face confirms that the cider is good stuff on top of being produced quickly. I think the plot they were trying to go for was that the machine, despite working fast, didn't actually produce good quality cider, and so when everyone finally gets to drink it at the end, it would be revealed that the machine cider is no good, as the twist. And it would be a decent twist since, aside from Granny, nobody gets to taste the cider until the ending. But either somebody didn't get the memo or the script wasn't actually finished, because this idea was barely even implemented. If Granny had looked more puzzled after taking a swig of the brothers' product instead of elated and then concerned, then its quality would be more ambiguous, and thus they could easily get away with saying that all of their cider is poor quality, if we ignore the machine's quality control feature. But as it stands, we just have to assume that there's nothing wrong with the cider. It's totally fine. And as such, the whole crux of this plot makes no sense at all. The only reason the townspeople hated the cider was because the brothers just so happened to have made some bad cider and then gave it to them. If all of their cider was no good from the start, then Granny would look smart instead of suspicious. Refusing the deal wouldn't have been a bad move, and it would be in character for the Flim Flam brothers. You could even still have them win too, since, let's be real, no way would quadrupling the effort be enough to beat the machine if the odds are 6-1. The apples somehow getting ahead was just a contrivance to make Flim and Flam produce some bad cider. But if their cider was iffy from the beginning, then they could cut that out, Flim and Flam would still be run out of town, and we'd even get a better executed moral about quality over quantity. But as for the story we actually got, no, it makes no sense.
Because of this silly competition, we've made enough of our cider for the whole town.
Oh, no frickin' way, you're lying. If they're implying that they aren't gonna drink any of Flim and Flam's cider, 36 barrels is enough for the whole town? Then why the hell did every day you guys stop at 25? What's wrong with you? Can you remind me what you learned from this experience again?
I didn't learn anything. I was right all along.
Are you sure? Are you really sure you were right all along? See, this is what I mean. They still try to push the quality over quantity message, but it doesn't work because Flim and Flam cider was of both high quantity and high quality. Really, you didn't learn anything at all. Well, it's good to know this will definitely happen again next year. Oh yeah, and despite the increased supply, Rainbow still doesn't get any cider. Weird, you helped out. Why are you at the back of the line? But of course, as a heartwarming ending, Pinky decides to give Rainbow some of her own cider. Not that it matters because she has 48 other cups that she plans to sell on the internet later. Wow, what a mess. Last time, it was mostly poor implications. Here, it's like the plot is half-formed. I think part of it may be because this is Flim and Flam's first appearance, and so they still hadn't fully worked out what their whole gimmick should have been. Like, are they con artists or just evil businessmen? If this episode had been part of a later season as opposed to season 2, it probably would have been very different, but in its current state, nothing freaking adds up. The apples apparently don't understand how businesses are run, make things harder for themselves, and piss off their consumers. It seemed like they were setting up a conflict between Rainbow and Pinky, but then that gets dropped immediately when Flim and Flame arrive in favor of making Applejack the focus. past. And the fact that the Flim Flam brothers were almost completely justified in their actions and promises totally shoots the entire story in the foot. Like, come on, their cider is of roughly the same, if not better quality, but they can make it 3 to 6 times faster with little effort. That is irrefutable. Sure, this dumb bet allowed the apples to satisfy every customer that day during that season, but in terms of long-term solutions to the supply problem, no progress was made at all. You know, give a man a fish or teach a man to fish and whatnot. I guess we got a good song out of all this, but still, what a mess.
Man, when was the last time I had some good apple juice? 2 years? I wish I could have some right now, but I keep getting wrapped up in stupid bullshit without warning.